Okay. Okay, I'm going to shout really loudly, so maybe take off your headphones or something.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. All right. We're done. So,
oh, cool. Please add that as our preface.
As the intro. Do that as the intro.
Yeah.
I'll like auto-tune it and change the notes to be like,
And then have the music play after that. That'll be fantastic.
Oh my goodness.
All right. I'll see what I do.
Oh no.
Hello, and welcome to the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. K-Slugs.
My name is Peter, a.k.a. Deal For Real, and I'm also your host.
And my name is Ryan, a.k.a. Ryebread, and I'm a guest on the show today. Was I not supposed to come in?
Kevin, who is this guy?
I don't know, man. He kind of, I saw him in college one time, my freshman year, and he's kind of followed me around ever since. And so I opened my door the other day, and this is a Friday night, and all of a sudden this dude is at my door, and he's like, "Kevin, long time no see. I'm so glad to spend time with you this weekend." I'm like, "What?" And so apparently, it's one of my
it's the truth.
randos from College Station.
It is the truth.
Right. Well, I'll do the honors then. I'll say that Ryan is a good friend of ours, especially a good friend of Kevin's. They did go to college together. Ryan is, I would say, passionate about video games, especially some in particular. And we wanted to bring him onto the show because he's got a lot of good things to say. So, Ryan, welcome to Interstate Gamers. You're our first ever guest.
All right. Thank you, guys. I am very honored to be on here today. To be your first guest on the show. That's quite a bit. That's quite a lot to live up to. So I'm going to do my best to give you the points of why I like some video games the way I do. And hopefully I will add a lot of good things to the conversation today, maybe so much so that you might invite me back in the future. So thank you guys so much.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I mean,
Yeah, we'll be the judge of it.
we're only like 2 minutes in.
Yeah, rando guy. So anyway, as you guys know, on this podcast, we rate and discuss some of our favorite video games. But if you didn't know that, well, that's what we do. And the goal here is to kind of spark conversations and fun discussions about some of these games and perhaps even get a little bit critical about them. So, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Today we've got a game that is very special to at least me. Kevin, I believe you might have played this game for the first time recently, or maybe for the first time in a long time. I'm not so sure. And Ryan, this game is part of a franchise that I know that you're very fond of. And this game that we're going to discuss today is Metroid Zero Mission.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I did, in fact, just complete my first full run through of Zero Mission.
Can't confirm. Witnessed it in person.
Yeah. Chris and I were discussing the other day how we think, because Chris and I went to the same daycare when we were little. My friend Chris, or some of you might know him online as Z-Link. But we went to the same daycare. Yeah, it's cute. I know, whatever, daycare. But we exchanged games a lot of times, and we played each other's video games and stuff like that. And I think I played a little bit of his Zero Mission game, and I've played various parts of it beforehand. So I was familiar with, like, some parts here and there, but, like, for the entire game, I was, like, at a complete loss. But, yes, I did complete it for the first time today. And I have played Metroid Fusion, which is the only other Metroid game that I have beaten. And so this being another Game Boy Advance Metroid game, I was very excited to give it a try and talk about it on this podcast. So
Very cool. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, so Metroid Zero Mission actually for me is the second Metroid game I have ever beaten and owned. So I didn't, I was kind of late to playing Nintendo games. My first console I owned was the GameCube, all the way back in 2006. is when I finally got the GameCube. And the reason why I wanted it is because a good friend of mine named Brandoff, he introduced Metroid Prime to me, and I loved it. So I got the GameCube for that game in particular. And I owned a Game Boy Advance and SP, actually. And I decided to try out the next game in the series, which was Zero Mission was right there. And so Metroid Zero Mission was my first 2D Metroid game. And so that's kind of the history with me with that game. And I have played it and beaten it throughout the years roughly 8 times. And so I definitely know my fair share of Metroid Zero Mission.
Yeah, sounds like you do. This game, I believe Metroid Zero Mission might be the first Metroid game that I ever properly owned as my own game, because when I was younger, my older brother had the Super Nintendo and he had Super Metroid. So although I grew up playing a lot of Super Metroid, it was never really mine. And so Metroid Zero Mission was the first Metroid game that was, mine. And I have played it. I've beaten it many times. I actually played it earlier today, started a new file, and I got pretty much 3/4 of the way through the game, maybe a little more, in about hour and a half to 2 hours.
Ooh,
which
nice.
That time frame I think is something we'll probably talk about at one point, because length of games is always a consideration. But yeah, I love this game. I think there's a lot of good things about it. I do want to say before I forget, just to establish the usual little context that I do, that this game came out in February of 2004, whereas I believe the Game Boy Advance was released in 2001. But yeah, somewhat of a late Game Boy Advance game, all things considered. And as you mentioned, Kevin, it's the second Metroid game for the Game Boy Advance, coming after Metroid Fusion.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. So before we get into it, how about we talk about the brewskis we're brewing on?
I was about to ask. I wasn't sure if we would be doing that today, but I do have a brew in hand ready to discuss. I guess I can go first then, if that's cool.
Yeah.
So today I'm actually drinking one of my favorite beers. It's the first time on the show that I think I've drank a beer that I know that I like a lot. And it is from the same brewing company as last time. It's from Great Divide Brewing Company here in Denver. And it is the Colette Farmhouse Ale. It's a very delicious beer. It's maybe not very sweet, but it is quite sweet. It's about 7% ABV. It's a very hazy golden color beer. It's very pleasant to look at, so much so that I actually poured it out of the can for once on the podcast. Got it sitting in a nice glass over here. But I'm a huge fan of it. It's one of my go-tos.
Man, that sounds delicious. So for us, this is kind of interesting. So Ryan, he was like, I got to get a beer for the podcast. I was like, well, yeah, you definitely do. And I didn't have I normally have my my Shiner. So I have my Shiner.
Does. Yeah, it's in the fridge right now.
It's still in the fridge. But I was like, you know what, Ryan, you pick me up a beer while you're at the store too. So he goes and he comes back and he brings me back one of his favorite beers, and it's called the Fat Tire. And I'll let him go into a little bit of discussion of about what Fat Tire is to Ryan. But yeah, I just basically, Ryan got me a beer. It's called Fat Tire, and it's an amber. So I love it.
Yeah, so this actually hits close to home for you, Peter. As you know, Fat Tire is the main ale from New Belgium, is what they're really famous for. So Fat Tire has always been my favorite go-to beer. And so it might not be like, the nicest beer and all, but it's just very solid for a great choice that I like to go to for any party, any social gathering, all that stuff. So Fat Tire, I get it from my dad. I get a lot of things from my dad, and tasting beer is one of them. And so I actually been to the what's it called? Blah, blanking right now.
Brewery?
Yeah, so I've been to the brewery in Fort Collins. So I don't know why. I was trying to come up with the name New Belgium, but I forgot it for a split second. I don't know why. But I've been to the New Belgium brewery in Fort Collins. So I don't know if you've ever been, but it's really good, fantastic. And yeah, that's what we're having today.
You know what? This might be a spoiler for you two, not for listeners, because by the time this episode comes out, this will already have happened. But on the Yeasty Boys podcast, on which I was a guest today, by the way, for those who might not know, we actually drank and reviewed the Fat Tire because at the very last, I didn't know I was going to be on the show until I woke up this morning and I was like, oh shit, gotta get ready. And at the last minute, we tried to choose a beer that we could all drink, you know, for the sake of all having the same beer. And they asked me, hey, Peter, what are some breweries that you like that might be out here in Kentucky? And I said, oh, there's Avery, there's Great Divide, there's New Belgium. And they were like, oh, yeah, we have some Fat Tires lying around. And I said, great, I can go to the liquor store that's like a 2-minute drive away from me and grab some Fat Tire. Fun fact, I had actually never had one before today, believe it or not.
Wow.
And you lived in Colorado for basically your whole life? And
that's definitely not true.
He's lived there for a couple of years.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
at least since you've been 21, you've been in Colorado for the most part.
That's also not true, but much closer than the last thing you said. Okay. I've been in Colorado for a year and a half. But yeah, anyway, so I had my first ever, not to hijack your Fat Tire description. I just thought it was a funny coincidence. Wanted to point that
out. Well, moving on to our games, our game. But yeah,
finally,
finally the game segment. So yeah, Metroid Zero Mission. I believe we're starting off with gameplay. So who wants to take it away from here?
Why don't we have the guest, Ryan?
Oh, shoot. Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah. Before I guess I could start with some of the points that about Metroid Zero Mission. First off, every time I think or play this game, I think of my brother Jason, my younger brother Jason. This is actually his favorite video game of all time. And when he was really young, when I got Metroid Zero Mission, I introduced this game to him, and this was one of the first video games he's ever played. And so because of that, he's loved this game ever since. So he's actually not even a Metroid fan for the most part. He only played beaten 2 games in the series. But to this day, this is his favorite video game of all time. So I want to give shout outs to Jason in that. And I do love this game. So I guess the first thing that I really like about Zero Mission is the controls. To me, they're very crisp. It's a very fast-paced game. Samus feels really good to move around in the environments, and it's actually my favorite physics engine for any 2D Metroid. So that includes obviously Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and even Samus Returns. It's just my favorite physics engine. I just love just the fast-pacedness of the game and how crisp and easy the controls are.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's actually one of my favorite things about the game as well. I think I might have said once or twice on the podcast that I tend to favor heavier gravity in video games, or I guess a better way to say it was I am not so much of a fan of floaty games. And Super Metroid, although it's an amazing game, it is very floaty. So for me, when I'm playing Zero Mission, I feel that crispness and I feel that that weight to Samus that really visually matches with her power suit a little more. Maybe she's wearing all this armor. You'd think maybe she would be pretty heavy. And when I'm playing this game, I do feel that sense of weight and that sense of the sense of speed too, which kind of contradicts the weight, but it makes sense when you're playing the game that she feels so responsive and so. I keep saying crisp, and maybe I should look into the thesaurus, but it's just such a great word to describe the movement in this game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think the mechanics felt really smooth and polished for primarily the most part. I did notice a little bit of lag when I would do the speed boost power. But other than that, no, it's a very smooth game, and especially for the Game Boy Advance. It felt natural for that console, for that handheld gaming device. So, yeah, definitely agree.
On that note, one thing I do want to talk about is some of the button controls rather than the physics. And I'm going to be comparing a lot of things to Super Metroid because that's kind of my big other Metroid game I've played a lot. Mm-hmm. And this thing is one of them, where one button feature that I really enjoyed was that in order to arm your missiles, all you have to do is hold the R button, and for as long as you're holding it, you'll shoot the missiles. So rather than toggling between shoot missile mode or not shoot missile mode, you just hold the R button, and it's as simple as that. In Super Metroid, what you had to do was you had to cycle through all of your items, not just missile and beam, in order to get to the weapon you wanted to use. So say you had the power bomb selected, and let's say that the missile is maybe 3 slots away. You have to press select or X or Y or whatever button it was repeatedly to get to that weapon. And here in this game, they've really streamlined it to where if you're running around normally, you hold R, you arm your missile. If you're in a ball, you hold R and you arm your power bomb, and it's just a really intuitive way to handle that sort of thing, which I think is a big improvement over previous games, especially Super Metroid.
Oh yeah, I agree. And actually, that was first introduced the R button missile mechanic in Fusion, and so Fusion was actually the first game that they introduced that. And I'm glad they kept it over when they did Zero Mission. And so it's something that I really like in 2D Metroid especially, and they actually still kept it that way when they did Samus Returns for the 3DS. And so I'm glad that that still holds up to this day.
Solid choice.
So I have a question, because I'm not really sure on this, but where is this game in terms of, like, is it the last 2D platformer Metroid game before Samus Returns?
It is, yeah. So that's why Samus Returns was such a big deal for a lot of us Metroid fans, was because Zero Mission was the last 2D Metroid, and that was 2004. And so before Samus Returns came out, this past year in 2017, it's been a 13-year gap. And we're still kind of waiting for a totally new original 2D Metroid, because the last one is still Fusion back in 2002. But yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic, one thing I wanted to mention real quick is that for anyone who doesn't know, is that Metroid Zero Mission is a retelling of the original Metroid game. So the areas are the same, the characters and the plot are mostly the same. It's a kind of a reboot, I guess would be one word for it. So it's not even an entirely new storyline, which goes back to your point, Ryan, of saying that Metroid Fusion, aka Metroid Fusion, was the last, original proper 2D Metroid game.
Metroid Fusion.
Metroid Fusion.
I love it. One thing I wasn't like, I had a little bit of trouble with in terms of mechanics, and I think Ryan probably knows what I'm about to mention.
Here we go. This is so funny, Peter.
The power grip feature. I struggle with that so hard because I guess it just didn't feel natural to me or whatever.
So funny.
But I finally, towards the end of the game, figured out the best way for me to accomplish it personally. I guess I expected it to, when you grabbed the ledge, for it to, if you just held left or right, for you to just go up on the ledge. Or if you push down, you just fall. Well, that's not exactly how it works. You either have to hold up and left or right, or you press left. And this is the one I did later on because I finally figured out left or right and press A. And so that's the method I ended up doing it with. But beforehand, I would try to get up from the ledge. And here I am waving around my arm, just on the ledge, just trying to get up the ledge. And Chris and Ryan are just laughing at me. But yeah, I was like, it doesn't feel smooth or natural to me in that. But that's really picky. That's getting really nitpicky. But I just thought it was one funny thing I should mention.
Yeah, no, I was prepared to laugh at you for like being dumb or something. That's actually totally valid, especially considering that we all play a lot of Melee, and in Melee, to get up from the ledge, all you have to do at a bare minimum is just press forward, right?
Yeah.
In this game, I guess it's not so simple.
It's a little bit more.
Yeah. I also feel like holding something, especially when, freaking Mother Brain, that boss, when that ledge has become pretty important in that fight particularly, and really in a lot of scenarios in Metroid where, you get knocked off a ledge and you're hanging there and you need to get up really quickly. It's kind of annoying if the only way you know about is to hold up and right. You'd have to wait like at least a second for it to go up there. Whereas if you hold left and right and press A, you get up there a little bit quicker. So I was glad I was able to finally figure out a faster method. But I feel as though it should probably be easier to get up there. But that's segueing into another thing about gameplay. Mother Brain was awful in my opinion. Just straight up awful. That was not my favorite boss, I will say.
He did struggle a little bit.
Can you elaborate?
Well, it's just so... It didn't seem like that was the boss itself. It was more along the lines... And I guess Mother Brain might be controlling the security system. but it felt like I was fighting the security system more than Mother Brain. And it kind of took me out of the fight with Mother Brain and just trying to escape these things that are constantly hitting me because I need to stand in one spot and shoot Mother Brain. So there was a lot of bosses like that, actually. It's not as... So like Fusion, there was a lot of... And I go back to Fusion. I use it as my frame of reference for Metroid games because it is like my one Metroid game that I know and have loved before this one. But I did a lot of references to it. And, you know, in that game, there's a lot of moving around when it comes to other bosses. There's a lot of mobility where you can like run around and kind of use the entire area that you're in to fight these bosses. And I know this is a remake of the old one, but yeah, it's not so much the case in Zero Mission, whereas you're kind of trapped into the corner like on most bosses and you're really limited to movement. So it wasn't my favorite because I kind of like to be moving around more than just stationary. And the fact that there's just so many things shooting you is just aggravating more than it was challenging. So I guess that was my critique of the Mother Brain boss and kind of the bosses of Zero Mission in general.
You know, it's really interesting that you mentioned that because I think that, well, first of all, I do want to say that in defense of the Mother Brain security system aspect, the cool thing I think in this game is that she's not the final boss of the game. So maybe it's like more defensible from that standpoint that maybe her fight's a little like anticlimactic. Whereas in Super Metroid, for example, she is the final boss, but you don't just have a security system. She has this crazy second form that's a lot more crazy, I guess would be one word to describe it. But another thing in this game is that you got me thinking about the different boss fights and the mini boss fights even in this game.
Yeah.
And I realized that I think that the mini boss fights, several of them involve you moving around a lot more than the main boss fights.
Right.
For example, in the Kraid area, the mini boss is like a little claw that comes out of some acid and tries to, well, claw you. And you have this little, what's the word? Like a zip line type of thing that you can traverse the area with. And in the Ridley area, there's this mini boss that's basically a giant bee-type insect that flies all the way across the screen, left and right, in this pretty wide room. And you have to, well, you don't have to, but you can run around to avoid it if you want. And both those instances give you a lot more mobility and flexibility than any of the main bosses do. So I think that's actually a really interesting point that you bring up.
And to tag in actually the Mother Brain aspect, I think that's actually more to be more true to the original, because this is a remake. In the original Metroid, Mother Brain is the final boss, and Mother Brain actually does not fight back at all. All you have to do in the original Metroid is destroy the glass container and shoot Mother Brain, and the only thing stopping you is the Rinkas and the turrets that are shooting at you the entire time. So that's it in the original Metroid for the final boss. And so in this game, what I do like, though, is that they kind of stayed true to that and made that just as chaotic. But Mother Brain actually fires a laser out of her eye at you. And so and she closes her eye when you fall down. And so it makes it a little hard to hit her eye to, so she protects herself a little bit more. And you have to wait to dodge her laser and then damage her afterwards. So it's actually much more interaction in this game than it is in the original Metroid. And so that's something that I actually enjoy, the Mother Brain boss in this game.
Yeah, I did think that was one thing that they probably were they felt really constrained by was the other game and the fact that this was a remake. And so I did take that kind of into consideration. And they probably expanded on the boss in itself. I'm just kind of thinking from a purely like not knowing that, well, I guess not even that, but I felt as though I don't know, I'm coming from Fusion where a lot of the bosses, even some of the mini bosses, there's just a lot more moving around and fighting them and feels a lot more intuitive than just backed into a corner. I felt like they could have done it. Well, you showed me Ridley from the original Super Metroid, and he is a lot less, he's a lot smaller than he is in this game. Ryan, isn't he?
Yes. Well, their sizes are comparable. So it's not too much different. And the Ridley fight, you actually should be moving around in that boss fight if you want to do it well. If not, you'll just get grabbed and you'll just spit fire at your face. But Kevin, that was something that you actually did pretty good at earlier today. You actually didn't get grabbed once. And so I'm actually really impressed. Because when I first played Zero Mission, I definitely got grabbed a ton of times. And so you actually did that pretty well. I was very impressed.
Shout outs to Smash Bros.
Yeah, don't get grabbed. Don't get hit.
Yeah. Moving on to a better note about the game, I really enjoyed how fast-paced and intense the game was, and how it kind of got my heart rate going, especially the Zero Suit Samus portion. That part really got my heart racing, and it was really exciting and intense to just kind of react like, oh my gosh, there's a space pirate. Shoot him and then run. So I thought that was pretty fun. I'm glad they included that in the game. It did feel a little bit long, as I thought the game was going to end, but
that's true.
I guess I was okay with it.
Yeah. I could talk about the ending for a long time, and once we get to the content section, I think I will, because I think a lot of what makes the ending so special is more in like the content category.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to expand kind of on what you're saying, where the space pirate section at the end, I guess I'll explain a little bit for people who might not know. In the original Metroid, once you defeat Mother Brain, she activates a self-destruct timer on the entire planet, I believe, and you evacuate. In this game, it's a little different, where she does the same thing, but she doesn't blow up the whole planet. She just blows up the immediate area, and you escape in your ship, but then the space pirates shoot you down. And so you are stripped of your power armor. You become what is now probably like the famous or infamous Zero Suit Samus. And you have to basically Metal Gear Solid your way through the entire mothership of the space pirates. And then you enter like the Chozo ruins, which is called Chozodia. And you basically do like a ritual sort of thing. You get your power suit back, and then you defeat Meta Ridley, and then you escape for the final time, and then you blow up the mothership. And so what they did basically was just add a whole new expanded ending. But what I wanted to say is that I think that I really appreciate the new mechanics that they added to that section of the game. You have a little stun pistol instead of, beams that are capable of destroying things. And you have to pretty much entirely change the way you play the game. Because up until that point, you're mainly running through, wreaking havoc, shooting bitches left and right, not really having a care in the world. But you feel really vulnerable when you're Zero Suit Samus against these space pirates who are actually like terrifying in many ways. And I could talk about their AI and their attack patterns and stuff, but I'll either save that or I just won't mention
pretty funny.
it. But yeah, like they add a lot of new stuff. They add a whole stealth aspect. And then once you do get your power suit back, it just makes you feel so powerful and triumphant. And as far as content goes, that's great. And we can talk more about that later. But as far as gameplay, like the literal mechanics they introduce, I just think they do a stellar job.
Right. I agree in general.
And to touch on that, Peter, actually, the original Metroid, Zebes does not entirely blow up. It's just that area, just like in Zero Mission.
Oh, okay.
So that would be kind of awkward because in Super Metroid, you return to Zebes.
Yeah, I had a brain fart there.
Yeah, so it's okay. And then actually, Zebes does get destroyed entirely at the end of Metroid Fusion. So rip Zebes at the end of Fusion. But yeah.
Well, doesn't it get destroyed also at the end of Zero Mission? Like you are at the end of Super Metroid? Like, don't you literally see the planet blow up?
No, it's just that section. It finally goes away at the end of Fusion when she crashes the giant BSL station to it. So finally rips Zebes in Fusion, but yeah.
All right. I'll take your word for it. My instinct is that they destroyed the planet and brought it back by retconning, but I'll take your word for it because I know that you're more knowledgeable about the franchise than I am.
Yeah.
Zebes is destroyed at the end of Super Metroid. The planet destroyed at the end of Metroid Fusion is SR388.
Okay, well, cool. I think that about does it for our gameplay, does it not?
I have a couple of
some more points.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, guys. I'm not trying to stop y'all early.
Ryan, I'll let you take the reins.
Okay, sweet. So I guess for me, that I really enjoyed about Zero Mission is that I loved discovering new areas and discovering new things. The game really wants you to experiment on a lot of things, and it doesn't like straight up tell you to use certain abilities certain ways. And so I just really like discovering and trying out new things. I also really like the puzzles and the problem solving in the game. Kind of an example of this is in the Norfair section, there's this worm boss right after you get the wave beam.
Oh, yes.
And the second one, it's in that tunnel area. And what you're supposed to do is that after it charges at you, you're supposed to keep shooting it to back it up. But its underbelly is underneath, so you can't do anything. You can't shoot it. You can't damage it. And so what you have to do, though, is you have to go into Morth Ball before it charges you, lay a bomb, and that delay, since it's charging at you, the bomb will explode at its vulnerable area underneath, and that's how you kill it. And so a lot of that puzzles and problem solving is something that I really appreciate about the game.
I do not want to admit how long that boss trapped me because I couldn't figure out what to do. Like when I was a kid.
Yeah. I had to nudge Kevin a little bit, like nudge, wink, wink on how to kill it. After it charged, he definitely just hid in the corner and just was like, I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't know what to do. And so I had to be like, nudge, Kevin, hit it underneath. Come on,
It's a pretty big curveball because up until that point, I don't think you ever really have to use bombs offensively. Like the only time you really ever do that is if you're literally in like a one Samus wide morph ball corridor and there's an enemy in there and you have to bomb them, because otherwise like you're always using your beam or your missiles, right? So like it's the first time really like you have to use the bomb to destroy a boss. So it certainly tripped me up for a long time the first time that I did it. So no judgment, definitely.
No, none taken.
Yeah,
I don't blame you for getting stuck at that part.
Well, not to you. I mean, to Kevin. But yeah, it's definitely a really creative way to use that weapon and to make you think for that mini boss. One thing I don't know if I can segue cleverly into this. Ryan, you talked about the satisfaction you got from exploring and trying new things and like using all the tools available to you to achieve different results. And that jives really well with one of the things I enjoyed most about the game, which was how challenging it can be to get individual items like missile expansions. Because half the fun of the game is just exploring the area as it is and like progressing forward in the area and in the story and all that. But then the other half of the game is like finding every single little item. And some of them are hidden very, very elaborately, like especially the ones that involve the speed boost. Some of those are like mind bending until you piece it together. And I really appreciate the fact that they realized how much fun that could be and made, and not too many of the items require that much effort. There are some that do, but many of them are a lot easier, which is a nice balance. But they just realized that one thing and they honed it really well and just made some of the items like a real pleasure, like a challenging pleasure to to get all of the items. So that's just something I wanted to kind of touch on before I forgot.
Yeah, so quick question. Peter, did you actually ever 100%ed Metroid Zero Mission before?
Yes, I have twice, I believe. A long time ago, but I've done it.
All right, sweet. Yeah, I did too. And that's actually really impressive because I actually found that this is actually one of the hardest games, in my opinion, to 100%.
Oh, wow.
Just because of the difficulty of some of the items you have to get. Like that energy tank before the robot Ridley boss in the end in the mothership. That's pretty difficult. And you actually really have to go out of your way, too, to get a lot of those items. And so it's not an easy game to 100%.
Wait. You're telling me that this game, to you personally, Ryan Everitt, that this is a harder game to 100% than F-Zero GX?
No. Definitely not. Nowhere close.
I was about to say.
No. It's just compared to other Metroid games, it's a little harder to 100% this one.
Oh, okay.
Like Metroid Prime, for example. Metroid Prime is a lot more convenient and easier to 100% than this game is. So
I would like to think that because I played this game around the time of its release, which is before I really used the internet, I'd like to think that I managed to 100% it all on my own, but I can't be sure. Because if it was, that would probably be one of the very few games, along with like Super Mario World for the Game Boy Advance, that I can actually say I 100%ed totally on my own, like no outside help whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very often that I do such a thing.
Yeah, and this game is really difficult 100% on your own without those hints. Because that's actually one thing I do enjoy about the game is that, I mean, Metroid's been doing this since Super Metroid in terms of 2D platformers. But whenever you go through an area, if there's an item in it, it lets you know via a circle that there's an item nearby. And so it just lets you know that, hey, there's an item here. And if you get that item, it turns to a dot. So you can look at your map afterwards and be like, oh, it looks like I missed these items over at this section. So I'm going to go back and try to get those and see and figure it out. And so that's one thing I do enjoy about the game.
Oh yeah, that ended up being very, very helpful for me. Once Ryan informed me of such feature. And I feel like I knew this back in Fusion. It's just one of those things that you kind of have to jog your memory of. I mean, I don't know if it was like that in Fusion. I can't remember.
It is. Okay. Yeah, it is.
All right. But it's just one of those things you kind of have to jog your memory. I was telling Ryan as I was playing the game, I was like, I know, I've learned from Metroid Fusion, and I would start bombing like the area with like morph ball bomb.
Literally bombing everywhere.
I was like, I learned from this game. Or there'd be certain situations where like normally you wouldn't think to do that, but I would do it because Fusion. So I thought that was fun.
So do we talk about storytelling when we talk about gameplay?
That would be more in the content section, I would believe.
Okay, so
that's kind of where like plot and related things go.
Okay, gotcha. So I'll save those points till then.
On the topic of hints that you guys are just talking about, I do have one more point I would like to make, but it's also kind of a question. And it's a question to both of you because you have both played and completed Metroid Fusion, whereas I have not. And this touches on a critique that many other people have of Metroid Fusion. In this game, in Zero Mission, there are many Chozo statues that will give you hints as to where like the next important thing is. Whereas in Super Metroid, that was not the case. In Super Metroid, you were left entirely on your own. I've heard that in Metroid Fusion, there is a lot of hand-holding as far as the artificial intelligence, I believe, telling you where to go. And I was wondering if you guys could sort of tell me a little bit how you feel about that aspect of the game compared to Fusion, since I've never played it myself.
Okay, yeah. Let me take the reins on this one. I think I remember enough to know about this one. Yeah, the AI. I say I know enough, but I don't really remember the AI's name. But
it's Adam.
It tells you. Yeah, it tells you to. It's basically the game is divided up into many different sections. And he will tell you to explore certain sections more so than really tell you where to go. But there is kind of a lot more of hand-holding than there is, I would say, a lot of other Metroid games. But there's still some exploration to it. And there's still the challenging factor of, like, they're not going to tell you how to get to these destinations. Sometimes you have to figure that out. Fusion, there's still quite a bit of like getting stuck and things like that. But what Fusion really brings to the table is its story is really good. Its intensity is really good. It's kind of creepy, and it's kind of like intense all the way throughout the game. So yeah, I don't know. It does. It's probably not. And Ryan may be able to elaborate more on this, but it does kind of hold your hand in some areas, but I still say that it's challenging.
Yeah, so I'll try my best to like not go too much in depth into Fusion because this is a Zero Mission review. But Zero Mission is actually I would call like a mix between how it does that between Super Metroid and Fusion. The reason why Fusion does that, just TLDR, is because the story of the game takes the front seat. And a lot of things change very quickly that the AI needs to let you know about. So that's kind of why it's structured that way, and actually works really well. So Fusion still very much gives you that exploration. Feels like a Metroid game. But on to Zero Mission. I still think that feature is very handy, especially for new incoming players. And so Zero Mission is a great game for incoming people of the series to play. In my opinion, if anyone asks me, hey, I know you like Metroid, what's the first game I should play? I will always tell them Zero Mission. And And so, like, I just know for Kevin's sake, those Chozo statues were very helpful
Oh, yes.
when he played those today, and it would be very daunting without it. And I do like how it just has a generic thing of, oh, here's a next useful item over here. It doesn't tell you, how to get there. Is it truly the next item you get? All that stuff. I think one point in the game that does this really well, that a lot of people can get stuck if they take it too literally, is when you first go into Norfair, because the Chozo statue lets you know, hey, the ice beam is over here. It doesn't let you know what it is, but it is the ice beam item. Kevin, amazingly, when he went down to Norfair, he went to the left. Even though the thing's on the right, he went to the left. I totally went to the right, and I tried to get up there, and I couldn't get up there because you have no power grip to get yourself up there. And I just stood around there for the longest time. I was like, oh, what do I do? And so what you're supposed to do is go all the way to the left and go to a different section entirely, get these unknown items and the power grip, and then you go all the way back around. And so, so it still has that, it's still very much that Metroid exploration feel. It just kind of gives you a general direction of where to go, so you don't feel completely lost or hopeless. And so I think that's really good, especially for newer incoming players into the series.
Yeah. Like I said, I learned from Fusion. I learned.
I agree that it's really helpful for new players, and it's also gotten me out of a few binds when I was playing the game for the very first time, over 10 years ago probably. And I do like the fact that it is rather vague. It doesn't ever tell you what's waiting at the other Chozo statue. It just tells you that there is one over there that you should probably make your way to. And I think that makes a lot of sense given the setting of this game contrasted to Fusion, where Fusion, like, the setting is totally different, where you're on a station that has an AI that is, trying to help you achieve a goal. Like, you have a teammate, basically. Mm-hmm. And in this game, you're in the depths of Zebes, or Zebes, I don't know how you actually pronounce it.
Zebes is how you pronounce it. Kevin earlier was like Zebes or
It's
and
definitely
stuff like that.
Zebes. I'm sticking to
it's
it.
like, no, Kevin, it's Zebes.
Well, you're gonna have to do years of reconditioning on me because I've been saying Zebes my whole life.
Oh no. Oh no.
But what's really nice is that, the Chozos are relics of times long gone, and they're not sentient beings who can tell you things. They're just kind of pointing you in a direction. And I think that, that's a really nice balance to strike between being totally on your own and being, I guess, handheld, to put it cynically, by the AI in Fusion. And what's also nice is just that the mini-map in general is really helpful. Like, in the original Metroid for the NES, you don't have a mini-map. And I've never played that game, like, for more than 10 minutes, and I can't imagine working your way through it without a mini-map even. Like, that just sounds not very fun to me.
It's not. It's definitely not.
Yeah, I was going to say feel free to change my mind, but it sounds like you won't. But so this game, I think, addresses a problem that many people had with Fusion, while at the same time staying true to what the game is and making it accessible as well.
Yep.
I do have one more little point I want to make on gameplay, and then then we can move on, because we've been talking for a very long time about the gameplay, although there is a lot to discuss.
Yep.
Yeah.
And feel free if you guys have anything more to add. Like, I'm not in a huge rush. But one little critique I have is that I wish that I could disable upgrades whenever I wanted, which you could do in Super Metroid. But in this game, once you get an upgrade, you're quote-unquote stuck with it. And the reason that I would like the ability to remove upgrades would just be, like, to give myself a little challenge every now and then. Like, if I've beaten the game already and I'm just running around for the sake of running around and destroying enemies, I think it'd be cool. Like, oh, I'm in the Ridley area where there's a lot of enemies with high health who have a high damage output. Let me just put on my regular suit and let me, like, get rid of my ice beam and my plasma beam or whatever, and just, try to challenge myself. I just think that would be a fun little thing to do, and I don't really understand necessarily why they removed that feature when it was present in a previous game.
Yeah, and actually Super Metroid's the only game with that feature.
Really?
It's not like that in any other one. So it's actually normal Metroid, just keep having your stuff and just blow through enemies. But that is a good point, though. I never really looked at it that way before. And that actually segues to one of the points that I do criticize about Zero Mission is that to me, I feel like it is the easiest Metroid game in the series. And I think it's a little too easy sometimes. I mean, I was telling Kevin, Kevin, I know you really haven't played this game entirely through. Make sure you play in the normal difficulty instead of the easy difficulty. That is because I feel like difficulty in Metroid brings a lot to it. Gives you that, fear of trying to live for yourself. It makes the environment a lot more hostile and gives you that feeling of isolation.
Absolutely.
But Zero Mission, though, definitely when you start to get really good, can get pretty easy. And so that's one of my critiques on the game, actually, as a whole, is that it's a little too easy for my taking. But still, hard mode still gives you that challenge, though. And so I do enjoy that.
Yeah, and when we get to the content section, I would like to talk a little more about the presence of multiple difficulties. But unless you guys have anything more to add, I think that's about it for the gameplay section. What do y'all think?
Yeah, let's
No, I'm good to go.
let's state our ratings.
Sweet. Kevin, you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. So I gave gameplay a solid fat 89.
Ooh, that's hot.
And I gave mine as a 92 for all those things I said earlier. So
Cool.
A for me.
Cool.
Very solid. Well, I'm on the same page as y'all. I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Ah, there you go.
Sweet.
Sweet. All right. Well, that segues us into aesthetics, where we first talk about visuals. Aesthetics. So let me just take the reins, and I'll just start out by saying that we played this on the Wii U, and I thought that was pretty cool, having that feature, just having it blown up on the screen, like a Game Boy Advance game blown up on my big TV was very fun and cool to see. So I really enjoyed seeing it from that perspective. Looks a lot like Fusion, I would say, but I wouldn't say that it stood out more to me than Fusion did. But once again, it being a remake probably constrained it somewhat. But yeah, no, I think it's a very good looking game. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's a really good looking. I feel similarly about it as I did Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. I felt it was a pretty good looking game, Game Boy Advance game. I have no complaints. It didn't wow me in graphics, even though I was able to see it in a huge, big screen. But there's a lot of visual cues that also helps with the game as well, that I thought adds to the visuals. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I actually think it's one of the best looking games on the Game Boy Advance.
Hell yeah.
And so I really do. And so maybe because it was kind of blown up a little bit, but on the Game Boy Advance, it looks so good. And for the fact that it looked that good on the big TV, I think is a testament to how good the game looks.
Exactly.
One thing I do enjoy about it is how varied the enemies look and how detailed even the bosses look. I really appreciate, even though the environments, it's like all caverns, but for the fact that each place was still like visually different and recognizable, I would come, to a room, explore it. And then one thing really appreciate about it is that, I'll go somewhere else. And then when I come back later, I instantly look in my surroundings like, oh, I know exactly where I am. So you never forgot about it, even though you only been there once. So all the places and rooms are very recognizable. And the rooms are varied in such a way of, oh, this thing is here. I must be at this spot. And so there's very little copy and pasting at all throughout the game. And I just really enjoyed how a lot of the textures and stuff in the background, it really is an alien world. And that's something I really did enjoy. It's definitely not planet Earth. It's definitely not a generic planet with a snow, jungle, ruins or desert, all that stuff. It's very much a alien world, and there's still these different areas with that different twist to it. And so that's something that I really appreciated about the visuals in this game.
That's even more impressive when you consider the fact that 99% of the game takes place underground. And so if you're a designer if you're a designer for this game and you're thinking, oh, like how can I make 1 million caves all look different from each other? This game does it, and it does it extremely well. I have similar opinions. I think the visuals are absolutely gorgeous. I think they're very colorful, very detailed, very gross when they need to be. This is a Metroid game. It's a very alien game. Everything's happening underground, and you're seeing kind of the worst that Zebes has to offer. So, no surprises there. Not too gross. They keep it pretty kid-friendly, but there are some things that have like weird holes in them and things that are slimy and make weird noises. Well, that'll be in the audio section, but they definitely set the mood very well. Kevin, you mentioned visual cues. One thing I want to mention about that is I love the feedback that you get whenever you hit enemies. They always flash white when you hit them with a weapon, and the bosses all get redder as they approach death, which is I know it's a convention in Metroid games, and I'm sure it's a convention in other games as well. Probably things like Mega Man, I would imagine, do something similar to that. But it is very satisfying. You get that reinforcement that like, hey, you are doing stuff. You are damaging this insanely large creature. Don't worry. Like you're making progress.
Yeah.
I also love some of the little details that they add as far as animation goes. One of them that really stood out to me was the animation of Samus's ponytail when she's in her Zero suit at the end of the game. Like if you pay attention, her ponytail moves with, it has gravity and it moves with all of her motions.
It's a great detail.
Even on the menu screen, if your save file is in that segment of the game, like rather than the helmet, it'll show her her exposed face with the ponytail and everything, and the ponytail will like move up and down as you're on the menu screen, which blows my mind. Like nobody had to do that. Like I don't think that some supervisor told a designer, hey, you better do that. The designer was probably like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they did this? And then they just did it probably. Like that's the level of detail that's present in some situations. And also in some areas that are particularly like old or dusty or ruinous, your feet will leave dust clouds wherever you walk or run or jump. But it's cool because it happens selectively. It doesn't happen in the entire game. So when it does happen, you're like, oh, this place is, really dank and gross. It's really just a bunch of little things, I think, that add up to the sense of world building and atmosphere and environments and all that stuff.
Yeah. There's one thing. Can we talk about the cutscenes though? Like, how good are those?
Please.
How good
so
are
good.
those? Like,
thank you.
I was like, they're the only ones that can pull like that kind of style of cutscenes off and make it work. Because I was like, I have seen nobody able to use that art style and make it work as such as a cutscene and make it feel still intense and like just amazing. I love the cutscenes. Those were great.
I love the one when you're entering Norfair for the first time and Mother Brain like has her gross ass eyeball that kind of appears from within the brain, and then she like you see Samus in her eye, and then her pupil contracts, and it's so fucking epic. It's awesome. God, I love cutscenes.
Yeah,
and that's actually something I want to kind of get to later in the story section on how great the cutscenes were for storytelling. But I agree, they were definitely very suspenseful, and I really loved the Ridley entry scene when you fight him for the first time. It's just all it is it's a still image of Samus turning around when you turn around, but like zooms in super fast. So it's like, oh shit, here comes Ridley, and here he comes, and so
here come that boy.
Yeah, and so it just does it so well. It's just like, oh gosh, you're expecting him because he doesn't appear in the room the first time. But when the cutscene happens, it just totally throws you off guard. You're like, oh gosh, So I really like that.
One thing I wanted to mention, Ryan, this was to your point about the variety in the environments and the way that you're able to tell where you are kind of from the landscape. One thing that just stood out, I'd always noticed this playing the game, but it really just stood out to me today and yesterday when I was playing in advance for this episode, is that every main area in the game, like Brinstar, Kraid, Ridley, Norfair, they all have, I would say, at least 3 or even 4 distinct appearances that different sub areas will take on.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Norfair is probably the most prominent example. They have like caves that are pretty standard looking, like just caves with brown and red rock. And they also have areas that look more like ruins or like a temple where they have, very distinct architecture. They have the famous green bubble rooms where everything is, made of green bubbles. And they also have a variation of that where the bubbles are a lot bigger and darker and kind of more olive colored instead of bright green. So they also take on their own distinct appearance. And it's just incredible the way that they're able to do that in varying ways with every single area, as I said, or all the ones that you spend a significant amount of time in anyway. And to me, it's just incredible that they're able to take all of those things. And although they do feel really weird, or they do sound weird when I say it out loud, like, oh, why does Norfair have like this architecture area mixed with green bubbles, mixed with caves? Like, when I step back, maybe it does strike me as odd, but when I'm playing the game, maybe it's because I grew up with Super Metroid, but when I'm playing the game, it just seems perfectly cool. Like, oh, I'm in this section now. And it's a sign of progress, and it's, visual variety that keeps me interested. And it's just crazy the amount of detail that went into all that work.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And actually, as a kid, I would think of those green bubbles as like eyeballs. I was like, ooh, this is gross.
Oh,
so
weird.
I definitely first thought that when I was a kid. So that was my first, I grasped onto, oh, green eyeballs, what is this place? And so it's definitely not really that, but that was my first thought when I saw that.
Cool.
I do have one more visual point I would like to talk about. And feel free to follow up if you guys have any more things you want to talk about. But I feel like you can't really talk about visuals in any Metroid game without talking about Samus appearing in her various states of undress at the end of the game. Depending on your completion rate.
Oh no.
Metroid has a long and storied history of giving what is very arguably a sexist fan service, depending on your performance. And I think that with Fusion and with Zero Mission, they really started the era of featuring Samus repeatedly in those various states of undress. Now, if you go, I was actually researching this last night, not in a perverted way, mind you, but in a purely academic way. How has Samus appeared in previous Metroid games? Because I feel like it's kind of an important thing to look at. In the original game, in Metroid 2 for the Game Boy, and in Super Metroid, there are some outfits she appears in where she's in a leotard with the tummy area cut out, or a bikini, or a bikini bottom and a tank top, and it's very it's very much obvious fan service, and it's kind of gross, right? In Fusion and in Metroid Zero Mission, they tone it down a little bit. Then again, they do emphasize, the curves of her body with the Zero suit and stuff like that. At least in the ending cards that you can get for completing the game, she's wearing a skirt sort of thing and a thing that resembles a halter top, I guess might be the word. So it's a little more it's a little more reasonable and a little more appropriate, I guess would be the word, than a leotard or a bikini or something that just seems totally out of place. But despite that, I do feel that this is the era of Metroid games where Samus started becoming what's the word? A sex symbol of Nintendo, where previously I would say there hadn't really been any, as far as Nintendo itself was concerned.
Yeah. Did they just completely abandon Samus and went, okay, let's just do Bayonetta? And so I feel like it's now Bayonetta.
It probably is. I don't know enough about. I was actually thinking about this. I don't know really anything about Bayonetta. Is she an actual Nintendo property? She's not a guest star in Smash Bros. Or anything like that.
She's not officially a Nintendo IP for sure. It's just Nintendo has a deal with whoever Bayonetta's with, that Bayonetta games are with Nintendo systems. So that's all I know for that.
So a second party sort of thing rather than a
correct.
First party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Bayonetta is more obviously in that role now. And from the very, very little disclaimer that I know about Bayonetta, it seems like maybe it suits her personality more. I feel like they very much play her up to be a sex symbol. And also I do want to say this might get a little bit political or what's the word? Social commentary. It's not in my place to say whether the existence of sex symbols is a bad or a good thing. I really don't know. I think that's for other people to decide, not me. But it's just really interesting to see the way that Nintendo has treated Samus and the way that fans have treated Samus or reacted to Samus. I know that there was a kind of a backlash whenever people saw that she was going to have basically jet-powered high heels in Smash 4. That was kind of a thing. And I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I guess I'm just saying, like, it's worth thinking about, you know, the fan service. I'll just say that, the fan service. Like, it's just interesting thinking about that and the ways that Nintendo has treated it over time and the way that fans have reacted, you know, men and women and others, like everyone. I don't know. It's, again, I don't really know where I'm going with this. It's just kind of a point of conversation.
Well, I will say that it does have all of that, but I feel like it doesn't need it. Like, I feel like the game itself, like, it seems like they were trying to take a mature stance and kind of point of view from the game. They're trying to, like, say, okay, this is a mature Nintendo game. But even if that's the stance or position or, like, however they wanted to do things with Metroid, like, they really didn't need any of that. It's just, yeah, I guess fan service, as you put it. But
yeah. And my view on it is that I definitely do not see Samus as a sex symbol or icon. I mean, the reason why they did that in the original Metroid was for the shocking reveal that she was a woman. And, you know, and in order to do that, you know, they kind of had to reveal her a little bit to make it obvious that she was a woman instead of a guy, which everyone thought she was. And so it was kind of like that, you know, like, oh, look, you know, if you beat the game fast enough, you get to see that. And so that was kind of like a reward for beating the game fast enough. And just, I think Samus as a character, I think she kind of owns up that she is, you know, sexy and stuff, and is a sexy badass. And so I think she doesn't mind, you know, showing off a little bit, but, you know,
she doesn't mind.
She doesn't mind, so yeah, whatever. I just never really viewed it that way, especially since, you know, if she really was truly a sex icon, then, you know, she would definitely be, I would say they would make more of an effort to make her more really revealing the game. The fact that you're playing the game in the various suit the entire time and all that stuff, I don't know. That's just my view on it. And so I don't think too much about it so much, but oh well. That's kind of my take on it.
Your point about them needing to make it somewhat obvious that she was a woman, I think that is a fairly strong point. I've never, you know, like, completed Metroid, so I've never, like, seen, I guess, the various states of undress. There is the famous Justin Bailey cheat, which I did use for the sake of the novelty. Kevin, do you know about Justin Bailey?
Yeah, Ryan's told me about it a little bit.
Yeah, so from that standpoint, I do get it, and I do think that the fact that Samus is a woman at all, period, was really cool, especially at that time. That's probably a time when, you know, there were fewer cool female, you know, tough, strong characters who were, well, tough and strong, basically. Again, this is sort of out of my depth. I don't know too much about the gender issues of the time.
Right.
But maybe, I guess what I'm saying is maybe once people knew that Samus was a woman, maybe they made the fan service, you know, a little bit lesser. Like, there's nothing wrong with being sexy. There's nothing wrong with sexy women. It's just that sometimes it feels like too blatant of fan service. And that's something that I don't know is all that good or not.
Right. Well, that's a good point. Good point of view. Does that about do it for y'all's visuals, though?
It does for me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So moving on to audio, and we'll kind of
wait. Got to give our ratings, dog.
Oh, I was about to mention we could give an aesthetics total after we do audio, but we could do it however.
Well, I don't know about y'all, but I do visuals separately, and I have been, so I was wondering if I could at least give mine first.
So what'd you give it?
I gave it a hot, fresh, chocolate-filled, straight out the oven, 5 out of 5.
Ooh.
Possibly the easiest 5 out of 5 I've ever given on this podcast.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. Well, I gave it an 89.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I gave it a 95. I don't have a fancy phrase to go with that 95 other than it's a 95. So there we go.
Cool.
Sweet.
So that brings us to audio portion of aesthetics. I'll start out by saying that, you know what? No, Ryan, I want you to take it away from audio because I know you are passionate about this soundtrack.
Oh, yes. So for those who don't know, one of the reasons why Kevin and Peter invited me on this podcast is because Metroid is my favorite video game series. I don't know if I said that already. I don't think I have, so that's why I'm saying it now. But one of the reasons why Metroid means a lot to me is because of the music. And this is easily has the highest rated for me in this game. I can just go all day about the music and I'll try to constrict it as much as I can. But the tunes are so memorable and are very catchy. They just stick with you forever. You just hear the start of the Brinstar theme and you can finish it without it continuing. I also love the Kraid theme is also very memorable. And they even improved a lot of new songs, or they improved a lot of the old songs from the original and made it way better. Like Norfair is even like very daunting and, it's hardcore kind of type. And the Ridley place, not the Ridley battle, is very like eerie and like mysterious kind of, like you don't know what's going to be around the corner. I love the boss themes too. I think Kraid and Ridley are done really, really well. And the tunes just give you a sense of eeriness, but they're still very varied and memorable. And so, yeah, I love the music of this game so much.
Yeah, I agree on the eerie thing. They definitely did a really good job of making it feel really eerie. Not only did they do a good job of that, but they did a good job of the sense of urgency in some of their tunes. And where like all of a sudden it would pick up and like some intense thing would happen, particularly, when you got caught by a space pirate and a Zero Suit and the alarm goes off and everything. They do a really good job, not only in this game, but in Fusion as well, of creating urgency with their soundtrack. So that was really cool, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan, I agree with you that the music, well, I guess both of you have said this, but yeah, the music in Metroid is and always has been a really defining factor of the game, and it's always been very memorable, very catchy. One thing I do want to mention, this is a comparison to Super Metroid, as are many things that I've said already, but in Super Metroid, I feel that in general, with a few very obvious exceptions, the music is a little more atmospheric. For example, let's think about the Ridley area theme music in this game, where, as you said, Ryan, it's very much it's very eerie, very spooky and atmospheric. But a lot of the other tracks in this game are very much, they're very much pieces of music that you can focus on that have very distinct melodies and percussion and things like that. Whereas in Super Metroid, most of it was a little more like the Ridley theme in this game, where things are more atmospheric and darker and moodier and maybe a little more uncertain. And so I was wondering, it's very clear to me that you guys all like the music and I do too. So this isn't me detracting from the game or even critiquing it really. I'm just kind of wondering if it makes a difference, and if so, what kind of difference, that maybe the music in this game is a little more attention grabbing and a little more urgent than some of the more subtle, creepy vibes of other songs or of other Metroid games.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it depends on the place. I think for Brinstar, that song is just perfect. It's the first place in the game. It's like the main, I guess, I don't know if I want to call it a hub world, but it's the world or the area that connects all the other areas very well. So you spend a lot of time just passing through, and it's the first area that you really get a sense of. And that theme is a very upbeat, catchy theme. Not so much atmospheric, and I think that really fits it really well. Whereas some places like Criteria, which is the surface of the planet, when you go there for the first time, you're just it does a great job of just like giving you that, this place is really different. What am I getting myself into? So I think it kind of depends, but I actually really like a lot of those catchier themes. I think Kraid's theme is just an example of that, because it still is kind of a little bit atmospheric, but at the same time, it's just so catchy, and so I just love it.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about is if you're playing the game and you're kind of in the same area for a long time, whether you're stuck or whether you're just taking your time, I was wondering if maybe the songs get annoying after a while because they are very catchy and very focusing. But from my experience, having played the game for so many hours over the past, many years, I've never really been annoyed by the music. So I guess it's kind of a moot point. Maybe some people might be.
Yeah, I think the only song in the entire game that does get on my nerves, I wrote it down specifically as the only negative for sound, was the Imago theme. And Imago is that wasp boss or bee boss that you were alluding to earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess it does its good job. I guess it does its good job because, it's like he's after you and he's a pest and he's annoying and stuff like that. But if you actually just sit down and listen to that song, it definitely gets old real quick. So that's like the only song in the game that I'm just like, okay, I could definitely go the rest of my life without hearing this again.
That's the type of song where on the official soundtrack, it would last about 15 seconds maybe before fading out.
Yep, absolutely.
All the other ones give them like 2 minutes. This one, you get 15 seconds.
Yep.
On that note, actually, I did want to say that I really appreciate the variety of boss themes that there are. Most of the mini bosses have unique themes. There's maybe 2 out of the 4 or 5 mini bosses that have the same theme. And then also the main bosses have their own distinct themes as well. And that's something that, again, they didn't really have to do it. They just did. And the themes that they chose for the different boss battles all fit the theme of the battle very well. Or not the theme of the battle, but they fit the urgency or the movement of the battle very well. Like, as you mentioned, the Imago, was that its name? The wasp?
That's correct. Yeah. I had to
so,
look it up earlier today for its, he actually has his name. So
that that one's very and you're like, oh fuck, like I don't want to deal with this. So we kill it quickly. And then there are other ones where the mini boss of Norfair, or I guess it's the main boss, is like the slug that's dangling from the ceiling. That one, it has a very loping sort of like a dizzy sort of piano line, because in that battle you do kind of take your time a little more, you wait for things more. And it's really impressive the way that they managed to incorporate the gameplay and the music in that way for those battles.
And fun fact, if you did not know, that boss is the very early stage of Imago. So I don't know if you know that, actually.
I sort of picked up on it from the fact that there were a bunch of like similar slug creatures in Norfair, and they all kind of...
Yeah, because when you knock it down, it just lands there on the ground, and you go to Ridley for the first time. Kevin definitely got frustrated by this. Because when you go to Ridley for the first time,
oh yeah,
the cutscene happens, Ridley comes out, it's like, oh, I'm ready to go. And then you get there and you're stuck. You can't go anywhere. Just because there's a super missile door and stuff. And you can see that blue slug that it looks very similar that you just defeated, making a cocoon right up there if you go to the top. And so that's kind of the game's hint of saying, hey, how did this thing get down here? And so it's kind of your hint to go back up to Norfair, go back to that spot, notice that the thing's not there, and it dug a tunnel all the way to where you saw it. And when you follow it through that tunnel, you notice that it's hatched from its cocoon, and then that's when you go fight it. So it's actually all the same enemy. So fun fact.
Fun fact, I actually accidentally sequence broke earlier today because I got early super missiles from some speed boost trickery.
I know which one you're talking about. It's in Brinstar, right?
Yeah, the one where you have to like go through the crazy sequence with some morph ball shit. But yeah, because I remember that you get the super missiles normally after the Imago fight, and then I accidentally got these ones, and I was like, oh cool, I can sequence break. I don't know how much sequence breaking there is in this game because I haven't really watched speedruns or anything of it. I do know that it's obviously a huge part of playing Super Metroid if you wish to make it so.
I believe the only thing that it sequence breaks is that you can skip Imago entirely. At least the flying form, and that's it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's all you could do with it.
I want to be cautious of time because I know we've got a lot to say about content coming up. But yeah, I just wanted to say I really dig the sounds of this game and the way that it feels so not only natural, but it just feels so right the way most of the moves and the shots and the when you're firing your beam and stuff. It's the simple things like that of how it sounds, the way the game sounds. I really enjoyed that aspect of the audio.
Yeah, to add to a little bit, I actually love their differences for the missiles and the super missiles. Super missiles are like, to me, is one of the most satisfying things to fire because it's that extra crunch or power of the sound effect that it gives. It's like, oh shoot, when you fire it. And so just that difference between a missile and a super missile is like, oh, it makes all the differences.
What about the super morph ball where it goes?
Oh, the power bomb. That's a good one too. And I actually, I don't think this is a very popular opinion, but Metroid Zero Mission actually has my favorite screw attack sound.
Oh no,
So
that's awful.
So it's definitely my favorite. I know Kevin disagrees, but how do you feel about that, Peter? How do you feel about the screw attack sound?
Is it the one where it goes like?
No, it's like kind of like that.
Well, because I know that in Super Metroid it's more like a like higher pitch,
Yeah,
and this
it
one I
is.
think is more subtle. I like it.
So-
I didn't spend most of my time playing on a save file where I had the screw attack, so I can't comment for sure.
Gotcha.
But I do want to say in general, I agree with both of you. The sound effects are extremely satisfying. They have that traditional GBA kind of crunch to them across the board.
Mhm.
I also really appreciate how many of the enemies have unique sound effects when you damage them. I'm sure that some of them are reused, but a lot of them have like very obviously distinct sound effects, like the minor enemies, not even the mini bosses. And again, that's something that they didn't have to do, but they did, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And one more thing is that I was telling Kevin this earlier. One of my favorite sound effects in the entire game is when you get the unknown items that your suit cannot originally comprehend. And it just makes this like mystery sound. And I was telling Kevin, man, you could just like add this sound effect to any suspenseful situation and just make it that much more intense. It's
Yeah,
like,
I agree. It's a really good sound effect.
Yeah, he tried to make
It's
a
like,
joke
Kevin.
about it yesterday, and it went totally over our heads.
I tried. It's like, Kevin, we're out of beer.
Yeah, it's like-
So I don't know if you like
We are?
enter it into this podcast, but that would be great. I love that sound effect so much. I can listen to it all day.
Yeah, but that about does it for me on audio. I don't know about you guys, but
I'm also finished.
Yeah, that's about it.
cool. Well, I gave it a hot and fresh 88.
And I gave it a 98. Like I said, I have virtually no complaints with the sound, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. So 98 for me, pretty high, but I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wow.
I think that might be the highest individual out of 100 rating that anyone's ever given on the show.
It is. It is, yeah.
Damn. Well, I'm a little more generous with mine given that my scale is much, much smaller, but I'm going to agree with both of you basically and give it a hot, fresh, solid, chocolate-filled 5 out of 5.
Chocolate filled. All right. Cool. Well, that moves us on to our last section of the game. Content, which I know we all have a lot to say about. Peter, why don't you start us off on this one? I feel like you have this is your forte. You love this section.
I love content.
Yeah.
This game, I do feel it's a little short, and I would be happy to hear you guys' opinion on that in a second here. It's fairly easy to complete. I'd say after the first time you play it, it's fairly easy to complete in a short amount of time. Like you could pretty easily do it in a day, I feel, if you're good at the game. But given what the game does, I think that's probably okay because it is a retelling of the original Metroid game. It stays fairly faithful. It does have the entire ending section, which is all new. And in my opinion, it's totally excellent what they did with the ending. I think that the post Mother Brain content is amazing. As we discussed earlier, you escape Zebes only to be shot down, and then you have to find your way out of the space pirate mothership. You get your suit back, you wreak havoc, and then you leave. I just think that entire sequence is awesome. I think it adds so much to the game. It certainly took me for a loop the first time I played it. I did not expect it at all, and it was just really excellent. And the scope of it too, like the areas that you explore at the very end of the game, the space pirate ship and the Chozo ruins, Chozodia, they're very huge areas. Like it takes you a while to get through it. So they weren't like skimping. They weren't just saying, "Oh, this is an afterthought." Have this little. They were not doing that. They were giving you substance at the end, and that really plays a lot into the high content rating that I will give at the end. It's just just fucking awesome.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, I agree for you with the most part on that. One of the things I thought that Ryan informed me on was that you can unlock the OG Metroid game if you. I can't remember how you do it, Ryan, but
You just beat the game once
oh, okay. Well, then I unlocked
on
it.
any difficulty.
Cool.
Yes, you did.
But,
Congratulations.
But I also do think that it is short in length, but that kind of increases its replayability a little bit, and then the fact that it's a little bit. It's got some good intensity to it, so I think it's got a lot of good replay value. So,
I agree.
Yeah, I think this game sets a new standard, or back then for remakes. Like, this is like, in my opinion, one of the greatest remakes, period. Just bringing out the original Metroid and making it, this awesome to play. Like, if I ever want to do a run of the entire series in chronological order, I would definitely play Zero Mission instead of the original. Like, it's that good. And it's great for people to experience that instead of trying to go with some of the dated struggles of the original. And so that's something that we do have to, I do have to say, is that it sets a standard for remakes. But it is very short. That's kind of one of my critiques on the game, is that, you can definitely easily beat it, especially when you get really good, under 2 or even under an hour even. But however, what's really great about it, though, is that the game is a lot of fun to play through again, and it has great replay value. And speedrunning is very encouraged, especially with the different endings and everything that you can get. So the game is almost like it wants you to play it through multiple times.
Absolutely.
And so, Peter, I know we both have played it. We both played through this game more than 5 times, and that's because not only do we want to play it again, but we want to see, how we can do it, how fast we can do different sections, or whether it's you didn't get all the items last time, you want to get them this time. And also a really cool thing about it is that if you can unlock hard mode after you defeat it on easy or normal the first time. And on the hard difficulty, I believe it's the same difficulty as normal. The only difference is that energy tanks give you 49 additional health instead of 99. And missiles give you 2 instead of 5. And super missiles are 1 instead of 2. So basically all your supplies are halved. So it's like, oh, cool, you went through normal. Now do the exact same thing, but with like half of everything. And so it actually makes it for a pretty unique challenge. And if you beat the game on hard mode, you unlock a soundtrack in the game itself. So that's also a pretty cool unlockable that you can get as well.
I agree. I think that the unlockables in this game are, Kevin, I'm passionate about unlockables. I think this game does it right.
yeah.
Compared to at least one other one that we've reviewed. I do like the hard mode. I think, Ryan, one other difference might be that some of the enemies are replaced with the more difficult palette swaps of themselves.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But other than that, yeah, the items being halved definitely struck me the first time I ever played hard mode. I was like, oh shit, like this is getting real.
Right.
But to your point earlier about the game being fun to play multiple times, a perfect example of that, and this happened without me even realizing it, is that last night I was looking at some of my save files and I had like 2 100% save files and then a third one near the end of the game. And I thought, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to delete 2 of my save files and keep my like OG 100% one. And then after I cleared one of them, I thought, oh, like I can't start from hard mode after I've cleared a save file. I have to beat it again on normal. But then I thought about it and it's like, oh, that's not even a big deal because I can beat the game in like, a couple hours just in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be, that does speak to the game being short, obviously, which some people might not appreciate. And sometimes I do want a longer game. But in this game, I think it's okay for the reasons that we've talked about. Like, there are at least 3 reasons. First, the fact that it's a remake of a game that exists already, and then they want to encourage speedrunning and all these other things. It's probably fine for it to be short and sweet and to the point, because the rest of the game, as we've gone through, literally on this podcast, the rest of the game is just so good. It holds up.
Yeah. That's actually one of the notes I have on content. It says, and this is a point I do want to mention. Honestly, the content doesn't particularly wow me. at all. I mean, it kind of does in some ways, but it kind of does in others. It wows me in the other areas that I rated so high, but I would say that more of the extra content doesn't really there's nothing to go home and brag about, in my opinion. But I do think the content holds up, which is something I have verbatim in my notes, which I thought was funny that you mentioned. But yeah, I think there's something to be said about short games. And it's not even really a short game. It's like a medium length game, but there's something to be said about these games that you can play over and over again that especially, people, I hate to say this phrase, but people our age, we don't have a lot of time to go back and play these games that we've loved. And Zero Mission kind of enables you to do that. And the fact that I was able to beat this game without ever having to play it and have it ready and able for the podcast, I thought was really good. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, actually, to that point, this is the first game we've reviewed that not all of us, or not both of us, have played extensively as a kid. And we might do some more games in the future. Like there's a game, not to spoil anything, there is a game I want to play for the podcast, and it'll be the first time I've ever, actually played it. And so I'll have that experience as well. But it's been really cool, I think, Kevin, that you were able to, as you said, complete this game essentially in one sitting. It sounds like maybe 2 days in time for the podcast. And that's a really exciting possibility. Like if there are games that we can do that for, that's amazing, because that just increases the number of games you can talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And if we're tying in story to it, I did enjoy the fact that you are experiencing, and in a remade version, nonetheless, Samus's first real mission. You know what I mean? Like, as Ryan was informing me, like, you are experiencing like her first greatest mission, and you're like, okay. And I don't remember why it's called the Zero Mission, but in programming, and this is what I want to assume, zero is like the zeroth index is the first or the starting point of every data structure or array. So not to get too nerdy there, but
God forbid.
Yeah, that's kind of how I viewed it.
That's cool, actually.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you want to talk about storytelling a little bit? It's something that you hinted at previously.
Yeah. So something that I really liked about Zero Mission is that I know you alluded to the cutscenes earlier, and I think the cutscenes do a very good job of the storytelling, even though there is no dialogue. Obviously, there is some quotes from Samus. There is when the game starts, and I think that's a great quick quote by Samus. But just the cutscenes, is the storytelling, and it tells you that like the space pirates are aware of you. Ridley's turning the ship around to come at you, or like Mother Brain's aware that you're here. She's watching your every move, or all those kind of things. And so I really do appreciate what the cutscenes do to the story without the story being like one elaborate text thing just telling you what it is. The story is kind of there, and it's up to a lot of interpretation a little bit almost, but it lets you like have a little bit of a mystery to it as well. So I really appreciate the story of this game.
I totally agree. I think that in these earlier Metroid games, I guess with the exception of Fusion and the other games, the stories were fairly simple, but they were very effective. And this game, I think, plays on that strength by just giving you the bare minimum, right? Like, that you're on this planet, you have to exterminate the Metroids, that Ridley and Mother Brain are aware of you, and that's kind of enough to get you going and enough to feel the intensity. They don't have to have dialogue or anything like that. So yeah, it definitely pulls it off in a very special way.
Right. There is one area of the storytelling I do want to get a little critical about. Is the story as great as it is because of what we know comes afterwards chronologically? But looking at the story itself, if you knew nothing else about, or the story that Zero Mission tells, if you knew nothing else about Metroid, is it like an amazing story? It's not a bad one, and it's still pretty cool and intense, but is it as hype as it is with the other games included or without? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's
I would
a
like
great
to speak
question.
to this.
Yeah.
Ryan, if you don't mind, since I have a little more of an outsider's perspective than you do, I'd like to talk about this first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um,
Yeah.
Thanks. So I guess I want to kind of qualify what I said earlier by saying that the story, I wouldn't say it's amazing in the sense that there's a whole lot of drama and like you're totally invested in all the characters or anything like that. Like I said earlier, it's very simple. You have a mission and there are people that are going to try to stop you because, they're on the other side of it. But I think that for a game like this, where so much of it is based on the atmosphere and the sense of dread and isolation, all that stuff, I think that's really perfectly fine. And so in that sense, I think that the story it's amazingly executed is what I would say. The story itself, it's not J.R.R. Tolkien or anything like that. It's just you doing your shit and you got to do it. Right.
Right.
And I know what happens in Super Metroid, although in Super Metroid, it's essentially this again, really.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as the other games go, I am a bit of an outsider, so maybe Ryan can fill in to talk about the other side of this question. But I think that this game in particular has its story, it does it well, and that's all that it needs to do.
Yeah, so Metroid actually has a pretty in-depth story, but a lot of it is kind of, you have to kind of look into it almost. That's something that I think is a good thing about Metroid, is that a lot of the series, the story is not really shoved in your face for the most part. It's there if you want it. Like in the Prime games, you can play through the entire game of Metroid Prime without knowing literally anything about the story, or you can know everything. And that's just if you want to actually sit down and read the lures that you read in the walls, if you read the space part logs and there are computers when you walk by, it's all optional. And so for the most part, Metroid's kind of that way. I know when Kevin's friend Chris was over last night, he was asking a lot of kind of Metroid questions of what's going on in the story. I'm able to answer it because one, I'm a fan, but two, fun fact, before the release of Zero Mission, Nintendo actually made 2 volumes of Metroid manga before this.
Oh, sweet.
And so the manga is 2 volumes. It's actually really good. I encourage anyone listening that is interested in the story of Samus and Metroid to check it out. It's very easy to Google search and find it. But it actually goes all the way from her as a kid when her parents were killed by Ridley in front of her, all the way to her accepting this mission, the Zero Mission from the Galactic Federation. And so it tackles everything in between. There's actually a lot that goes on. And so it's kind of one of those series where you don't need the story to enjoy the game and appreciate it, but it's there if you want to dive into it. It's actually a well-done story, I think, for the most part.
I would argue that might be the best type of game where, the story is optional.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I would say that kind of, in terms of how I feel about the content, like I said, it doesn't wow me, but I think it's good. And I think it holds up. So that's kind of my TLDR on that.
I agree with Kevin on that, for sure.
I don't really have anything more to say, but yeah.
I have one little thing I want to ask Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to mention that I do really love how they show a glimpse of Samus's childhood with the Chozo near the end of this game. And I think this might be the first ever clear depiction of that going on, along with the manga that you mentioned. Do you know if that's accurate? Like if this is the first time we see Samus as a kid with the Chozo?
Yeah, that's correct. You nailed it. So because I believe the games before Fusion, it's a lot of storytelling that goes on, but a lot of that's not involving her in the Chozo. Metroid Prime doesn't really touch on that too much. Super Metroid, other than that, you're at Zebes and there's Chozo statues and everywhere, doesn't really tackle that too much. So for the most part, I think what's known is that Samus was, raised by the Chozo, and that's basically all you knew. I think some of the games tackled that beforehand, but this is the first time where Zero Mission really goes out of its way and say, no, this is like Samus's origin kind of. And I think that was really cool that they did that.
Yeah, sweet. Well, that does it for me in terms of content.
Yeah, I'm about done too. Yeah.
Yep, same here.
All right, so
Cool.
let me give my rating. So It doesn't wow me. TLDR doesn't wow me, but I think it's good overall. I think that brings my score for content to an 84.
Wow, Kevin, we are basically matching. I'm an 85 on the content.
Wow.
Ooh, wow.
Yep. We're basically matching there.
Wow.
Great minds.
Yeah. Well, Peter?
So I'm torn on this, actually. I couldn't really decide between a 4 and a 5, which is funny because that would come out to a 90 on you guys' scale.
Right.
So I'm gonna round down to a 4, kind of for the sake of not giving it all 5s. I don't know if that's flawed or not, but yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 for content, but close to a 5 in my opinion.
Okay.
There you go.
Would it be so wrong for you to say 4.5 out of 5?
It would, Kevin. Actually, I'm a man of principle.
Okay.
I chose a scale for a reason. I'm gonna stick to it.
All right.
Kevin's trying.
So that rounds me out to I believe it's an 88 overall.
And I'm at a 93.
Okay.
I think this is definitely a game for me, and it's I love this game, and it means a lot to me. And yeah, 93.
That brings me up to a 95.
95. That's good. So something we haven't really been doing for these podcasts, and I think we should start doing, and I kind of want to bring it back into this episode. Averaging all the scores together, getting our IG score. No, we have done that, haven't we? But we do that, but we haven't said where it placed amongst our rankings. So
That's true.
That brings us at a 92 for all of our IG scores combined together, including Ryan's in. And looking at it, a 92 brings that slightly below Star Fox 64. So that brings us as the number 2 game on our podcast out of 5.
Right. Nice.
Ryan, could you remind me what your overall score was?
93.
93. Kevin, yours was an 80 something.
88.
Okay, cool.
It was an 87.5 rounded up to 88 because I just skipped the formalities that, you hate so much.
Right. Yeah, as far as the rating goes among the other games we've rated, it sounds kind of right to me. I think that this game is it was very universally acclaimed. I actually did go and look it up on Metacritic, and I believe it has a 90 average.
Mm-hmm.
So
89, but
89. I'm sorry, I was off by one small insignificant.
Hey, that 1 point matters.
Nah, but yeah, this game definitely has a strong legacy. I believe it's I believe that within the Metroid community specifically, it's probably a quite revered game. Ryan, you might have a little more insight onto that, but yeah, it's an amazing game, and the ratings that we've given speak for themselves.
Yeah, it's definitely important, especially in terms of being able to really appreciate and fully enjoy the original Metroid and what that is. I think I've kind of forgot to talk about this a little bit in the content section, but one thing that it does do really well is that it doesn't change the identity of the original Metroid. It still plays true to it in spirit. And actually, fun fact, I was talking about the physics earlier. This was the physics engine that was used in the fan remake of AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake. So if you enjoy the feeling of this game, AM2R actually uses this exact engine. And so, yeah, fun fact.
I've played a little bit of AM2R. I never played the whole thing, but yeah, I did notice the physics were very similar to this. Metroid fans out there, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't manage to check out AM2R. I say this having not played the whole thing, so I've done myself a disservice.
Also, Nintendo, please don't take us down for referencing the game.
I'm sure Nintendo cares a lot about our podcast. I'm extremely worried now. We might have just ruined the podcast for all of us.
Well, anyway, cool. I'm okay with it being the number 2 game on our podcast. I'm pretty satisfied with that. But we are kind of running on time here, so if y'all don't mind, can I get over to the quick attack section?
I have one suggestion.
Okay.
So since this is a Metroid game, can we call this the screw attack section?
Oh, shit. Ryan, you're a goddamn genius.
You might have to change the intro for that then.
No, what I was going to say was, since there are three of us, if we're keeping with the Pokemon theme, since there are three of us, it could be the try attack section, since that is a Pokemon move.
Yeah, I like Ryan's better.
It's more topical, that's for sure. I'll give it that.
Also, check out my words for this podcast or this episode's quick attack or screw attack section. You ready for this? It's so fitting.
All right.
I'm ready.
Zero or hero.
Yo.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
You guys are so smart. Fuck.
Yeah.
I am super impressed right now.
Yeah. So
I
zero
was wondering in
hero.
my head, I was like, what's it going to be? And it's like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Too good, man. All right. Well, without further ado, here we go. All right. So this one's pretty interesting. A student has met a retweet goal to change their AP chemistry exam to a fortnight exam. Are you thinking this guy is a zero, or are you thinking he's a hero?
So I actually saw this news earlier because I think you like retweeted it or something.
Yeah.
So maybe be conscious of that if it's something you want to put on quick attacks. I'm gonna be bold here and say zero. I'm gonna say that's not cool. Probably screwed over some kids who never played Fortnite. You're probably doing yourself a disservice. I'm not like a academic head or anything like that, but come on, man. I'm assuming it's a boy. I just have to. I'm sorry. Come on, man.
Yeah.
So wait, is this a teacher that's doing this?
The teacher said if you meet a certain amount of retweets, that we will change our AP chemistry exam to a fortnight exam.
Gotcha. I have to pick one, don't I?
Yeah.
I guess zero, but not by much. I mean, I think it's fun and, kind of funny. And, I bet a lot of the students wouldn't mind it at all, or maybe most of them. But still, it's kind of like a slippery slope. Like if you let this slide, then you let other things slide. So I guess zero. I kind of sided with Peter on this, but I still think it's a fun idea, but still zero.
My girlfriend over here she's saying, Katie, she's saying zero because she's a chemistry major. But I would personally say hero, but that's just me. Anyway, moving on. Today is the 1 year anniversary of the Switch and Breath of the Wild. So zero or hero, man?
Oh, I'm here all the way. The Switch has been a fantastic console. Both of you should definitely get it, by the way. It's so good. And Breath of the Wild is actually the game that I'm definitely playing most of my free time right now. Didn't really start playing or getting into it until earlier this month, but I'm already past 50 hours in. I'm loving it every second of it. So, hero.
Yeah, I'm still mad at myself that I haven't played Breath of the Wild yet. There's a few things preventing me from doing so as much as I would like to. But I've been keeping myself away from like too many details of the game. I've seen like barely any gameplay of it, but I know that it's extremely good from everything that I've read and the few things I've seen. So yeah, I'd be an idiot not to say hero.
Okay. Cool. Well, moving on to our next fact. It is rumored, I guess it's not a fact, but it is rumored that Diablo 3 is coming to the Switch. Zero or hero?
I thought that already happened, or like some Diablo was on the Switch.
It might be Doom. You might be thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Well,
I think so. That was
yeah. I don't know too much about Diablo. I do know that Diablo 2 was an incredibly successful game, and I don't see any problem with the franchise coming to a Nintendo console. I think I felt a similar way about Dark Souls. I feel a similar way about Skyrim, which made its appearance on the Switch, I believe, a little while ago.
Right.
So I'm gonna say hero, man. The more people that play great games, the better.
I'm the same way. I actually, since I never owned a PS3 or an Xbox 360, I never played Dark Souls before. And so when it's coming out on the Switch, I actually will be playing it for the first time when it comes out on remaster. So I'm looking forward to that because I know it's a great game. I heard amazing things about it. And so I'm all for Nintendo getting third-party games for the Switch. It needs more of it. So hero.
Yeah, I agree completely. So our last one, and it's going to hit a little close to home for one of us here on the podcast. Yeah, boy, Tony Hawk has announced that he has parted ways with Activision.
Oh no.
Sigh. Well, it's the end of an era, but if you look at, I don't actually know if Activision was responsible for the fucking travesty that was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. I kind of assumed that they were, given the name of the game. I do know that Neversoft, which is the OG Tony Hawk developer, they did not develop that game. Some other bullshit did that. I'm sad it's the end of an era, but I think that better things are in the future for the Birdman, as we call him in the community. So I'm going to say hero. Say, spread your wings and fly, my dude.
Yeah.
I don't really too much have an opinion on this, but if it did happen, I think it happened for a reason. A new beginnings could mean great things. So I'll be hero as well.
All right, cool. Well, that does it for our last segment of the game, and that wraps up our podcast pretty much.
All right. Kevin, Peter, thank you guys so much for inviting me on this. I hope I didn't make things too crazy, and I loved being on here, so thank you so much.
Oh, you were fantastic, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Ryan, I really appreciated your insight into the Metroid franchise. God knows that Kevin and I both benefited from it. The only thing that displeases me about you being on the show is that we did run long, and I've got a lot of podcasts to edit. But the good news is that I have a long time to do it because we're doing this early. The other good news is that our listeners will have a lot of our voices to hear, which is always a good thing. And
Yeah.
It was really fun having you on the podcast. I wish that you and I lived in a place where we could hang out more often. Of course, this applies to you, Kevin, as well. Although, Ryan, I do know that you have connections to Denver, so maybe something might be in the cards for us sometime, possibly.
Next time I do a family vacation on Colorado, I'm going to make an effort to come see you. I'll do that.
Yeah, definitely hit me
You have
up.
my word. On the podcast, you have my word. So there we go.
There you go.
It's in cyberspace. Kevin, of course, we're trying to get you out here to Denver sometime. I also am totally
Yes.
down to visiting the new digs in Tyler, seeing what your kind of home
It's a cool
city
place.
is all about.
So
Yeah.
The College Station days may be somewhat over, but a new era is beginning. Just like with Tony Hawk and Activision parting ways, it's same thing but better.
Yeah, very
there's
much
a reason
so.
why I randomly came over to visit Kevin. This place is pretty awesome.
To run a 5K, which there's a funny story behind that, but yeah.
Yeah, I did want to kind of ask you guys about the running y'all did this morning, but since we are so short on time, I will just say that Kevin and Ryan are they're a little more athletic than me, especially Ryan. I know that Ryan is a running man, and they did some 5Ks and a 25K. It sounds like, is that what you did, Ryan? Did I hear that properly?
Yeah, it was a 20-minute 5K this morning. Yep. So not bad.
A 20
pleased
minute
with it.
5K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard 25K as in 25 kilometers. Like, whoa.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah.
Although, fun fact, he was going to run a 15K at a 5K pace.
That was
had it not
close.
for my girlfriend informing me that Ryan was about to run the 15K. And so then I
was so determined.
ran over there to stop Ryan. I asked him what would he do in that situation where after he had passed 5 kilometers, well, I assume he would have ran like 6 before realizing, wait a minute, did I run the 15K? But I asked him what he would do, and he was just like, I don't know.
One last thing, Peter, you'll appreciate this. On my way up here to Tyler, I was listening to y'all's previous podcast, and there is this Highway 69 that's near Tyler. So when I was listening to the podcast, the GPS interrupted it since I was playing through my car audio. It was like, turn right on Highway 69. And when it cut back to y'all's podcast, you and Kevin both at the same time were like, sweet. So I just completely died and I lost it. So I thought you'd appreciate that.
Oh, man. That's rich. That's rich.
All right.
Yeah. So on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up things here. I will give some shout outs to our own social media. You can find us on our nifty website that Kevin is responsible for snagging. It is the interstategamers.review. We are powered by Simplecast. We appreciate Simplecast and everything they do. We are now on Spotify, by the way. Kind of an awesome thing. So if you're If you're not listening to us on Spotify and you would rather do that, you can totally do that now. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is the IG_cast. Kevin's always on top of things. We have a Facebook page, which I think I mentioned already. If you want to look at the ratings that we've given our games, you can do so in a nifty spreadsheet I made. You can go to tinyurl.com/IG ratings. You can find those there. By the time this episode goes up, I'll definitely have updated it. Ryan, do you have any social media that you want to shout out?
I'm not very active on social media, so I do have a Twitter, but I only on it to follow certain people, and that's about it. So I guess that's it for me. So yeah.
Cool.
Well, cool.
There was one more thing I wanted to say. Fuck, I can't remember what it was.
We're super accessible if you didn't know. So you can find us on anything almost. I believe like the only thing we haven't put ourselves on right now is SoundCloud, which, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I do remember the other thing I wanted to say. I was lucky enough to be a guest on an episode of the Yeasty Boys, which I might have mentioned earlier in the podcast, but they will have aired that the week before this episode of Interstate Gamers comes out. So if you want to hear more of me, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't, feel free to tune into that podcast. Kevin, there was mumblings of your boy Kevin being featured on that podcast someday. So Kevin, if that's something you're interested in, maybe you can hit up Aaron about that. We can expand the dynasty even further. The Yeasty Boys are also a great podcast in general. I wanted to be on that show because I like it so much. If you want to hear some good friends shoot the shit, talk about beer, talk about other things, feel free to tune into that. Also listen to For Pod's Sake, another group of Texans actually who do that podcast. They're very entertaining guys, very knowledgeable about the things that they do and the things that they like. So if you want to hear a little more serious commentary from them as well compared to the Yeasty Boys, for example. So depending on what mood you're in, might influence what you want to listen to. But I just wanted to give shout outs to our fellow podcasters. We're all in this together, more or less. We're all doing different things, but we're all having fun. And that's all that I have to say.
Cool. Let's wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And until next time.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
All right. See you guys later.